present day, I'm at Emilio. As per our requirement in Communication 3 class, I need to ask you a series of questions with regards to your interests and concerns. So, shall we start with your life as a priest? As a typical teenager back then, of all the professions, why did you choose priesthood?
Well, actually, Diane, I started out very early. I was still grade 5 because I used to serve at Mass. So, I was very close to priests. And this in our place is Minalin, Pampanga. So, somehow I realized that God was calling me to become a priest. But my parents were not in agreement. So I started out in the seminary when I was third year high school. And it's a life that was close to my heart. I thought I could serve people and God best by becoming a priest.
So, how was your life as a priest then?
Oh, very colorful. They are very colorful. It has been 32 years. So I was ordained in December 13, Feast of St. Lucy. That was in 1980. And I've been assigned to many positions in many places, including parish priest of, I think, 3 or 4 parishes. The longest I stayed was in Betis. I stayed there for 7.5 years. But prior to that, I was Social Action Director of SACO. This is the Social Action Center in Pampanga, especially during the time of Pinatubo Malaglis. So I was in the middle of people in the parish who wanted to experience faith, their faith, not only as individuals, but even as a family, a community of God. So we were into pastoral planning. We tried to detect and pinpoint the problems and the needs of the parish. We also detected the resources of the parish, and we tried to match the two into a 5-year pastoral plan or 3-year pastoral plan. It was very exciting. And another exciting assignment that I had was during the time of Pinatubo, where I was studying. I was the Social Action Director, 91. But you were already born then? So you must have been told about the great devastation, calamity that happened then, and it was a yearly occurrence. No, it was not a one-shot deal. It happened every year. So we were in that position between people who needed to be helped and people and institutions that wanted to help. So we tried to match the two. So I was assigned in that position for 15 years. And then another exciting chapter in my life was when I, not because of my own liking, but I was enjoying to enter into politics. And I served the province of Pampanga as a governor from 2007 till 2010. So my staff and I tried to work for good governance. We tried to eliminate corruption in the sphere of influence that we had, that is the executive department of the province of Pampanga, and to a certain extent because of communal work, collective effort, we tried and we were successful in many ways in terms of eliminating, if not totally, at least by and large, corruption in our sphere of work. So you see, because it's a long span of time, you know. So it was a very colorful experience.
So, as you've said, despite the very colorful life as a priest, why did you suddenly decide to enter politics?
In 2007, there were two posturing candidates. One was perceived to be working for corruption, and another one was the epitome of illegal gambling. So one was called Mr. Wedding Queen, and the one Quarry Queen, and Quarry Lord, then Wedding Lord. So the civil society then wanted to present, to invite another kind of public servant, and that group, which we call the Civil Society for Panda, tried to look actually for candidates, but finding none, ultimately they invited me. I did not volunteer to enter politics. I was invited, and after a period of discernment and prayer, upon realization that God wanted me to do this, so I decided to go to politics.
So after winning the 2007 elections, how was your life as a politician compared to your life as a priest?
The comparison was more on the likeness and more or less the same expressions of love for God and our fellow men, but few on differences. Well, one of the basic likeness was we have to be open to, as a priest and as a politician, to be open to people. People can approach you, people can relate to you, you can relate to the people. You are not far off from the people. So you do that as a priest and as a politician. Then working with people, enjoining people to work with you, that was really as when I was a parish priest. And that's also what I did when I was at the capital. And it is harnessing people's potentials, character, resources towards desired goals, more precisely in terms of alleviating the sufferings of the poor, as a parish priest and as a politician. More or less the same aim, and the same more or less manner of doing things. The difference lies in the fact that there are more intricacies because of heavy bureaucracy in the government. So in that sense, working as a politician was more bureaucratic than working as a parish priest. And well, in both cases, I experienced intrigues. But in the church, they were petty intrigues. In politics, they were very serious intrigues. People could come up to you and in front of you, they will say good things of you. But when they're no longer with you, they stab you at the back. So in that sense, there was more challenges in politics. But it's the same service for God, the same for people, and it's service for the people, not only for the salvation of their souls, but it was a total experience of responding to the needs of the people and enjoining people to become more human. And the situation is it has to be turned from being human to just, to free, and to a more dignified kind of life.
So, in your own opinion, what was the probably most successful program or project that you have done during your reign in Pampanga, and how will you compare your leadership with the other governors of Pampanga?
Well, we were lucky in the sense that in our purview and in our objectives and advocacy, we were very strong on leadership by example. So I came into the capital without money. I came out without money also. But there were a lot of money at the capital that were left. And lots of programs that were made. Modesty aside, comparing our 3 years with that of the 3 years of Governor Lilia Pineda, I was surprised to learn that we did a lot more, in terms of road construction, feeding the poor, scholarship for students, help for the farmers. We did a lot more than she did. And what our predecessors did, like for example, the quarry collection that we had. The 12 years of the father and son, lapid tandem, Lito and Mark. What they collected in quarry for 12 years, we only did in a matter of a year or so. And then we were able to, as I said a while ago, to take out corruption in public bidding in terms of awarding projects and even in terms of construction of projects. I will cite you a very clear example. During our time, a meter of road, we could construct it by 3,500 to 4,000 pesos. Other government agencies and other politicians will construct the same measurement by 8,000. So it's half or less of the price during our time. Like the, what do you call this? These gymnasiums, the covered courts that we constructed. Others would construct their covered courts spending 5.5 million pesos. We could only spend the same kind of covered court with less than 2 million pesos. Very clearly we realized that if the leader is very decisive and strong and would enable people to help him out, we could really serve more people and a lot more services would go people's way. But if that person who is in government really becomes a public servant.
So, after losing the past elections, are there any chance of you running again?
Oh, I ran twice after that, and I lost in both places. I think that's it. I always realize that I'm not a politician. I am a priest. So I was called to serve the people as a priest. In my experience as a politician, perhaps it was just a digression that I had to go back to the priesthood because that's what I have. So I have no other plans after two more attempts after 2007. I think that's it. And it should be other people, other Pampangueños who would do it for the purpose of the Pampan.
So are you still planning to return to priesthood?
Oh yes, because that has been my life. But I'm not in a hurry. I am in this kind of work helping the poor help themselves. So I am into what we call microfinance institution. So we help the poor, not go outs, we don't give them money, but we give them loans at a low interest rate. And the money they use to help themselves, because people want to improve their lives, but one of the problems they have is lack of capital or lack of skills. So we try to provide both. And this institution, which has been existing for the past 26 years, is being blessed by God, helping a lot of people.
So in what profession did you think that you succeeded more, in priesthood or in politics?
I think both. And since I stayed longer in prison, I would say God has been so good to me as to reward our hard work and honesty more in pastoral ministry in prison.
So, to end our conversation, as a glimpse on the issue about pork barrel today, may I know what you said about it?
Pork barrel, that's what we have been fighting against for many years, especially when I was in the capital. And we did that. We were able to eliminate pork barrel because there are other ways of helping people. We don't have to go into contractors instead of putting up contractors. So we can have a more transparent, because we are transparent. Every transaction that we have in the capital is on the website. Contractors who wanted to bid for projects, or suppliers of medicine, suppliers of machinery, suppliers of office supplies, they could bid directly using the internet. So there are other ways than a pork barrel. So we have to eliminate it because it has caused so much ruin, damage. Imagine 10 billion pesos. 10 billion pesos alone could have been spent to scholarship, to putting up more classrooms. So really, it's really high time. People have spoken, and I'm glad I'm not that old yet to see people standing up on their feet to fight for what they believe in, and that is to eliminate the pork barrel reality.
So as you've said, there are other ways. What do you think is the better way to change pork barrel?
Funds should be more directed and utilized by the departments. So we have national departments, PSWD, Department of Agriculture, etc., etc. And these are cascaded down to the regions, provinces. Then we have the local government units who can be given more funds for their use. And then transparency, but transparency of the usage. Lawmakers are not in the executive. Their work is to make laws, to craft laws. It's not to administer funds. So take that out from them. The president should be given a certain leeway, because he's the executive. If the local government units are provided more funds, because they have the funds already with earmarked, internal allocation. But if the LGUs have given funds, so should the president should also be entitled with some funds, discretionary funds. But again, the point is have to be accounted for on a very transparent and accountable manner.
So, thank you so much for sharing your time with us and thoughts. It was such an honor for having this interview with you today. Thank you and God bless.
Salamat yan. Tigso na kami balingin.